Hello, and welcome to our session today. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the questions that I get so often. And if there's any topic that I think is important for you to be able to watch, this is one of them. Because one of the greatest questions that I get is I have certified, but I can't find a job, or people that are trying to find a job on the market. And one of the first things that I usually ask is send me a copy of your CV. And for many of us, I feel like our CVs are not marketing us in a way that employers will find interest in us. So please bear with me. I'm going to be going through quite a number of slides and a number of presentations. So I'll probably be alternating quite a bit. So just work with me. I just want to put a question. Yes, how good is your CV, and is it attracting any recruitment agencies to be able to approach you? How good is your CV, and is it attracting any recruitment agencies for them being able to contact you? So I'm just going to give about a minute just for those that want to join us, so that you can have time to join. So I'm just going to be crossing over. I've got my screen that is showing what's happening live on this side. So I'm just going to be alternating. So just bear with me. All right. So as I mentioned, our topic for today is CVs. How good is your resume? Is it marketing you? Are recruitment agencies contacting you because of your CV? Or you've been applying for jobs, but no one is basically responding? And this is very crucial and very important because your CV is your only marketing tool that you have to be able to market yourself. And if your CV does not contain the information that most recruitment agencies or employers are basically looking for, then your chance of getting a job is going to be very limited. So, in today's session, we're going to be looking at what should be contained in your CV. What should be contained in your CV? What are employers looking for? I want to just give clarity that this is not a quick fix session where you are going to tweak your CV and you're going to come up with something that is more marketable. This is basically targeted at you looking at your CV against what recruiters are looking for, against what are the keywords that employers are basically looking for, and analyzing and seeing if your CV contains any of those keywords, because you could be doing yourself a disservice by not knowing what recruiters are basically looking for. So that's the whole emphasis. And I think I'm just going to go about 5, 6 points on what makes a good resume, what content should you cover. Just a disclaimer, I'm not saying this is the only way and method that is going to help you get a job, but it is a good benchmark for you to be able to measure yourself against and ask yourself, where do you stand? How good is your resume in being able to put across that particular information? So, just to kick off our session, I'm going to share a presentation. And right, so we've got a slide on the screen that says opportunities don't happen, you create them. Opportunities don't happen, you create them. Now, for many of us, the one challenge, and I'm talking based on the questions that I get or the emails that I get from people who tell me that they've completed their certification and they've done their CCNA, they've done their CompTIA A plus, they've done their Network plus, whatever qualification that one has completed. But unfortunately, they can't get a job on the market. And one of the first things that I usually ask is send me a copy of your CV so that I can be able to have a look to try and see if there's anything that I can be able to help with. And I would want to say 90% of the CVs that I receive do not contain information that showcases what that candidate is capable of. And this is very important because people just put the certification that they've acquired, but they do not put anything in relation to the content of the certification that they have completed. So for someone who's reading that CV, they tend not to have a clue on what is your background, what knowledge do you have, and what knowledge have you acquired in that particular certification. So that is one of the challenges that I encounter. And most of the time, I spend a significant amount of time just trying to help someone go through that phase and try and come up with a CV that is more palatable, or probably one that is more aligned to the certification in question. So, as the title says, opportunities don't happen, you create them. And the key emphasis of that statement is you create opportunities by making your CV one that is simple and easy to understand, to an extent that employers are keen on bringing you on board or interviewing you. So I'm just going to kick off um, our presentation by looking at the 30-second rule. The 30-second rule, those that have worked in the recruitment industry basically state that between someone looking at your CV and trying to read the contents of your CV, if they can't get to understand what you're capable of in the first 30 seconds, you run the risk of your CV not being considered for that particular role. So, in simple terms, your resume must get you an interview in 30 seconds or less. When a recruiter is going through over 1,000 CVs, what is going to make your resume stand out amongst the rest? And what information can they get to know about you in those 30 seconds? So, a number of things then come to mind. Number one, the content of your CV is going to be very important. How clear you describe your experience and your knowledge is going to be crucial, because if someone has got 30 seconds, you need to sell yourself, or you need to give your elevator pitch in 30 seconds in order for your CV to be considered for an interview. So if you have probably been applying for jobs, but you have not been getting any response, then it could be that your resume might not be containing some of the key things that we're going to be looking at in today's session. So, what we're trying to achieve is being able to sell yourself in 30 seconds, and what information and content should you include in your CV in order for you to be able to get from the rejection pile onto the interview pile, so that you can basically be called and be interviewed in person. So that's what we are trying to get to. Second disclaimer, there is no such thing as a best CV or resume. So the objective of this session is not necessarily to promote one format over the other, but it is more to look at what is the content that is contained in your resume. John D, welcome, John D. If you're just joining us, we are looking at CVs. How good is your CV? Is your CV the reason why you might not be getting a job in the industry? Is your CV the reason why you might not be getting jobs in the industry? And the reason why I came up with this session was because most of the emails that I get, let me just try and see if I can alternate. Right, yeah, you should be able to see. Yeah. So most of the emails that I get, the number one question that I usually receive is, I've completed my certification. I'm trying to look for a job on the market, but nothing is available. So that's one category. The second one is, I have been applying, but no one is responding. So I've been making applications, but no one is responding. And one of the first questions I always ask is, send me a copy of your CV. And 99% of the times, the CVs that I get are usually not clear, and they don't sell the candidate's knowledge pretty well. Now, there's it's one thing being qualified, it's another thing having a CV that is in a format that is easily received by those that are looking at your CV. So for some people, I have two categories that I usually find. One category is people who are experienced, they've got the qualification, they've got the knowledge, they've got the experience, but they just don't know how to put their qualifications in a way that is clear for someone to understand. Then the second category is people who don't have experience. Um, they've attained the qualification, but they don't put any content in their CV in regards to the certification that they completed. So therefore, it becomes difficult for the recruiter to be able to identify them amongst other people. And that's what we are trying to address in today's session. It's trying to address what should your CV contain in order for you to be marketable? What are recruiters looking for in order for your CV to be marketable? So that's what we're trying to focus on. Um, okay, John, you've raised a very important point. John says, let me just put that on the screen. So one of the number one problems that most people encounter is when you're applying to big organizations, your CV has to go through a filtering process. And for many, it is that filtering process that you don't then succeed to be able to get to the interview stage. And that's a very relevant point. And I'm going to be covering that in this particular video. I think that is probably my next slide. Yes. So there's something known as an application tracking system. And this is what John was basically referring to. Let me just get that right. Right. So application tracking systems are software applications that are used by big organizations to help them in the handling and filtering of CVs for recruitment. So when you make your application, your CV is not going to be on the desk of a recruiter. It's going to go through a system. And in that system, it's basically going to be filtered to try and see if it matches the criteria that they are looking for in a candidate. And it is only the CVs that have made it through the filtering stage that then make it to the desk of a recruiter. And this is a very important point. I'll just maximize my screen so that you can see. So, what is important in an application tracking system? In many cases, they filter applications based on a given criteria, and the criteria includes keywords, skills, years of experience. And the question is, does your CV contain the keywords that the recruiter is looking for? So let's take, for an example, the recruiter is looking for a junior network engineer, because probably many people that are watching this are starting in the industry. So you got your CCNA and you find a job on the market that is looking for a junior network engineer. Now, most organizations, for such a position, there are a number of keywords that are likely going to come up. Maybe let me not speak. Let me share my screen and we can have a look and try and see what would is likely going to be included. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. This is the one that I want to share. Just bear with me. Okay, so this is a recruitment agent in, no, this is the job company in Australia. Yes, job company in Australia. So let us say you're looking for a job as a junior network engineer, because I just want to us to go through something live so that we can see what is basically being showcased. So let's scroll down. Okay, so we've got a junior network engineer role, and this is with a company called Virgin Australia. And I'm going to scroll down. I just want to see what are the keywords that are mentioned in this position. And if you were to make an application, the application tracking system is going to be looking for those keywords. And if your CV does not contain those keywords, then there's a very high chance that your CV is not going to make it through the application tracking system. So by basically looking at this, a few words are basically coming up. So the first one would be Cisco Meraki SD1, right? So that would be keyword number one. The position is looking for someone who's got knowledge on Cisco Meraki SD1. The second one would be network hardware. Right, so they're looking for someone who's got knowledge on network hardware. The third is cabling and rack standards. And let's see if there's anything else that's of significant importance. Yes, Cisco vendor certifications. So, do you have any Cisco certification? Do you have data center experience? Ethernet and fiber cabling, cable patching, UPS, PDU. So these are some of the keywords that they would put in the application tracking system, and any CV that contains these keywords is going to be filtered and passed on to someone to then have a look at the CVs in person. If your CV does not contain these keywords, then there's a very high chance, no matter how good you are, there's a very high chance that your CV is not going to get picked up. So keywords are very important, and I'm going to demonstrate how important keywords are. So I'm just going to take this Cisco Meraki knowledge and experience, right? I'm just going to copy that, and I'm just going to come back to the home page of our website. And this time around, I'm going to enter the keywords that I copied from the job in question, and I'm going to search. And I am certain that I'm going to find that same position using the keywords. So the keywords that I basically took from the actual job description, I was able to enter them in the search and locate the particular position based on the keywords. So I'm just trying to demonstrate that if your CV is not going to contain the keywords that are mentioned in the particular position, then there's going to be a very high chance that you will not be selected. So, one of the key reasons why you've been applying and you have not been successful could be related to the fact that your CV is not containing the keywords that employers are looking for for that particular position. So keywords are important. So let me just come back to my screen where I was sharing. Just a second. Right, so come back to this one. Okay, so keywords are important, your skills are important, and your years of experience. So, what keywords should be contained in your CV? What keywords should be contained in your CV? If you're just joining us, we are basically talking about CVs and resumes. How good is your CV? How good is your CV? Are recruitment agencies and employers contacting you? Because what you want to do is you want to get to a point where recruitment companies contact you for any available positions rather than you having to apply. And the question is, how good is your CV? If you got any questions, don't hesitate. Just leave your questions in the comment section and I will answer the relevant questions. So, what keywords should your CV contain? What keywords should your CV contain? I just picked up um, a, f- a few keywords on a few resumes that I was looking at online, and I'm just going to demonstrate. So, the first one is configuring and deploying Cisco Catalyst 6500, 4500 switches, and 7600 series routers. And for me, the keywords is the model of the switch 6500 and the model of the router 7600. Being able to mention those two models would demonstrate to the person on the other side what you're capable of. The second aspect would be the routing protocols. And in this case, I've got three: EIGRP, OSPF, and BGP. Now, 90% of network engineer roles are going to ask you either one of the three, four protocols: EIGRP, OSPF, BGP, and RIP. Because if you're going to be dealing with routing, you're going to be using one of the four that I've just basically mentioned. So most organizations will put the protocols that they're using in their environment with the hope that they can find candidates that are knowledgeable about those routing protocols, right? In hope of being able to find candidates that are knowledgeable about those routing protocols. So it is important for you to make sure that your CV contains the protocols in question. Now, yes, this might be help desk, IT support office, you know, PC technician, you keywords such as AD, which basically stands for Active Directory, 365, which is Office 365, VLAN, Windows, Linux, Juniper, Cisco, Exchange. These are some of the keywords that are used in many positions, right? Many positions in IT are going to contain such information. And if your CV is not including any of these keywords, then there's a very high chance that you are probably not going to be considered for jobs that might become available on the market. Remember, the issue is not do you know or you don't know. The issue is does your CV contain the important information that make it easier for you to be selected. by an application tracking system. The best example that I always give is you might have a PhD in network engineering, but if your CV does not contain the right words, you're probably going to miss out to someone who just got their CCNA yesterday and has got not much experience. So keywords are very important. And later on, I'm going to demonstrate, or we're going to look at a job platform and kind of look for the keywords that employers use when they're looking or advertising for those positions. And we ought to use the advert for the job as a benchmark of what you need to include in your keywords, on what you need to include in your keywords. So, what keywords should you use? What keywords should you use? Are you going to use VLAN, Windows 10, Linux, Office 365, backup, SQL? All these keywords are important. And for me, I always recommend or advise that you use the keywords that are included in the position that you are basically applying for. So once again, I'm just going to switch over to my screen. I'm just going to share my screen and right. So let's just scroll back up. I'm just going to try and increase so that this is more visible. It's not too big. Okay, yeah, so this is visible. Right, so if you're applying for a job as a network technician, my recommendation is just go to any job platform or network administrator. So let's look at network administrator. Go to any job platform, search for the jobs that are available, and then go to the job in question. Right, so in this case, we're going to look at this network administrator role, and we're going to look at what are the keywords that are included in this position. What are the keywords that are included in this position? So here you've got AWS, right, as one of the keywords. SDN is the second one. Fortinet is the third one. And if I scroll down, you find that they are emphasizing on proxy, Blue Coat, which is a product by Semantic, I think, or one of the vendors in the market. So proxy becomes important. Blue Coat is important. Squid proxy, and all these are important keywords if you are considering to apply for this particular position, right? And then you got VPN, hypervisors, ESXi, Zen, KVM, and then you got DNS, DHCP, Cisco UCS. So this kind of gives you an indication of what is it that employers are basically looking for. So that was one for the network administrator. Let's look for another one, just so that we can kind of have a good balance as to what is it that many people are basically looking for. So in this case, the one that sticks out is voice over IP. There's wireless involved. And if I were to scroll down, they're looking for someone who's got knowledge on HP or Aruba technologies, switching, routing, wireless, and firewalls. So, coming back to the question, what keywords should you use? My advice would be use the keywords that are associated with the positions that you're basically applying for. Use the keywords that are associated with positions that you're basically applying for. If you're looking for a job as a network technician, take time to have a look at network technician jobs and align your CV to make sure that it contains the generic keywords that are required or what employers are looking for those that are applying for positions as a network technician. Now, this is one of the common mistakes that I also note on people that I mentor or assist in terms of trying to get a job on the market. And I'm going to demonstrate this live so that we can all have visibility to what I mean. CCNA and Cisco Certified Network Associate are not the same. Not the same, they're the same qualification, but they're not the same when you are using them as keywords. And this is how I'm going to prove it. If I come back to my right back to our job portal that we were looking at earlier, I'm just going to go back to the home page. Now I want you to notice when I type CCNA and I search, you'll notice that 982 jobs came up in my search. Right, when I type CCNA, 982 jobs came up in my search. However, if I go back and search and I type Cisco Certified Network Associate and I search, in this search, only 11 jobs came out. And this basically demonstrates that if my CV included Cisco Certified Network Associate as the complete certification, there's a very high chance that 900 employers will not be able to reach me because of that description as compared to CCNA. Because remember, they are going to put CCNA as one of the keywords. And if your CV does not contain CCNA as the acronym, but it contains Cisco Certified Network Associate, then there's a very high chance that your CV is not going to be picked up by the application tracking system, or that your CV is not going to be, your qualification is not going to be recognized by the recruiter because they might be looking for CCNA rather than the full acronym. So just be mindful on what to use, the acronym versus the full description. And for those that have been in the industry for a while, you know that the acronym CCNA is more referenced than the full title of the certification. So CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, the acronyms are more recognizable than the actual, and this basically applies to a lot of the acronyms that you're basically going to use. OSPF, EIGRP, trying to fully describe the actual protocol name is probably going to give you, is going to put you at a disadvantage. So just know when to use the acronyms for the respective certification in order to then create value for yourself. Guys, if you've got any questions, please let me know. If you've got any questions, please let me know. And if this content is adding value, just let me know in the comments below so that I can be able to make more content in this direction in the future. If this content is adding value, just let me know in the comment section. So let's move on to our next section. Let's move on to our next session. Like I said, I'm going to be crossing over between multiple screen shares between my presentation and going through the live web pages. I made it in a way so that I don't forget, certain information and content. So, what should your job description look like? What should be contained in your job description? I once again, picked up a few, and I'm just gonna switch off. I'm gonna cross over to the website where I got this information, so that anyone who wants to, go to the website to be able to find a sample on what makes a good CV, you can be able to go through. So I'll switch over to it, but I just want to explain that the job description should contain the technologies that you've basically worked with in a way that makes the person on the other end, easily understand what knowledge that you have. So in this case, upgrading iOS on various Cisco routers, such as the 3945, 2911, and switches, that is 3750, 4500, and 6500. Now, this says a lot. If I were to read this, I can formulate a picture of what this person is capable of. And I can then look at my environment, what equipment we use, and how relevant is the experience of the person in regards to what we're basically looking for. So a typical example is if we've got 3750 switches in our environment or 4500 switches in our environment, the very fact that you have mentioned that you can or are capable of upgrading such devices basically then makes you a viable candidate for the position in question. So your job description should be able to detail your knowledge, and in a networking or in a technical environment, the more you can put the infrastructure that you've dealt with, the more it becomes easier for the other person on the other side to be able to know what you're capable of. Right. So I'm just going to move to the bottom one where it talks about worked extensively in configuring, monitoring, and troubleshooting Cisco ASAs, and in this case, 5500 ASAs. Once again, we have a description of what the individual is doing, and we've got the model of the device that we're basically working on. And in this case, it's a Cisco Firewall 5500. And I think the third one that I'm going to pick up is involved in troubleshooting aspects of complex network infrastructure using routing protocols like EIGRP, OSPF, and BGP. So the question that you want to ask yourself is out of right, the question you want to ask yourself is out of the things that I have mentioned, how much of that information is contained in your job description? If I were to read it and read 3 lines of your job descriptions on the different positions that you've held, am I going to find anything that can give me a picture of what you are capable of as an individual in relation to what we are looking for in a candidate? And this is one of the areas that people usually don't align their knowledge. They don't mention the skills that they've acquired, or they don't mention the environment that they've worked in, which then makes it difficult for the person on the other end to be able to try and gauge how good a fit you are to the particular job. So your job description is very important. And the more you can align it to industry standards to a way that it can easily showcase what skill set you have, the better it then becomes for you as you apply for that particular position. Right, let's move on to the next one, skills. Now, the recommendation with skills is that you should have a section in your CV where you can summarize your knowledge in not more than 3 lines. So in 3 lines, if you were going to describe what skills you have, how best can you communicate those skills? And as you note, I'm not so sure if you can easily see, or this is a bit too small, just hold on. Right, so in this case, your skills, you've got knowledge on Cisco routers, Cisco layer 2. Maybe let me just cross over to the website where I got this information. I'm just going to cross over to the website where I got this information, and you can be able to go to the website yourself and be able to see. So this is the site. It's called quickresume.com. Quickresume.com. So let's look at the. Let me go to the network junior network engineer, so that at least we can look at something that is more relevant, right? So this is the section that I'm talking about, your skills. This is the section I'm talking about, your skills. Let me see if I can just zoom it up so that it's much more clearer. Okay, sure. Okay, so here I was talking about this line in question, this line in particular. Cisco routers, load balancing methods, LTM, NAT server, LAN hardware and software troubleshooting, BGP and OSPF. You should have a section that summarizes what skills you have, so that the other person on the other side can be able to have an understanding of what you're capable of, right? So if you look at this one, operating systems, Cisco iOS, Windows NT 4.0, Active Directory, Apache, MS Exchange Server, Veritas Volume Manager. So this is where you kind of put the technologies that you've worked with and how you have worked with those respective technologies. So this is where you put the technologies that you've worked with and how you've basically worked with those respective technologies, but in a more summarized manner, so that when someone on the other end then gets to read, they can kind of formulate a picture. Remember, your CV is your selling platform, it's your number one selling tool. You need to make sure that it contains the highlights that basically market you as an individual. So if this was the selling point for a product like a Mercedes Benz, you'd basically be talking about, or maybe a Tesla, because Tesla has got features that are not standard in any normal car. So this is where you put like self-driving car. This is where you put the size of the touch screen in that particular car. You're basically highlighting the key components of the product. And in this case, you are the product. You're highlighting what are the key skills that you have that the person on the other end might be looking for, and you're putting them in a way that is paraphrased, short and simple, so that within the 30-second period, someone can look through and like, okay, I think this is worth, I think John is worth calling for an interview because he's got the skills that we're basically looking for. And once again, if you go to the job descriptions, most of this information is contained. So just try and make sure that you align the skills to what the job is basically looking for. I don't know if there's anyone who's got any questions. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate. Just let me know. John, I hope I have answered your question so far. I hope I have answered your questions so far. So whilst I'm on this page, we spoke about the skills, and the other important part is the summary. How can you summarize your knowledge? How can you summarize your knowledge in a way that is simple but yet articulates what you are capable of? In a way that is simple and yet articulates what you're capable of. So let's scroll back to our junior network engineer. So in here, we've got the 2 years experience that is basically been mentioned. We have network design, implementation and troubleshooting, in the areas of routing and switching, providing network support, installation, and analysis for broad range of LAN and WAN systems, expertise in installing, configuring, and troubleshooting of these routers and these switches. If I were the one who was recruited, by just merely reading the summary, I can kind of have a, a perception of what the person is capable of and whether they are worth considering for the position in question. So, if you could try and market yourself in your summary, try and make sure that your summary covers all the content that makes you be considered for or not for the position, right? That key information must be contained in your summary. So if there's one section that I would basically say is important, this is one of them, because this is what most people are going to read to be able to understand what you are capable of. And I'm just going to cross over to back to our presentation. So we have looked at the application tracking system, and we basically say that you need to have keywords in your CV, and these keywords must be aligned to what the job is looking for. So you need to have keywords, and keywords must be aligned to what the job is looking for. And we looked at some of the keywords um, that include Cisco, Microsoft, the model of the infrastructure that you've worked with, and in this case, 6500, switches, routers. All these are important keywords. Routing protocols, BGP, OSPF, EIGRP, RIP. Those are important keywords that demonstrate what knowledge you know in terms of routing protocols. Things like TCP/IP, VLANs, Office 365, Active Directory. All those are keywords that then separate you from others who might not have that information included. So the key objective is, when you go back and look at your CV, ask yourself, does my CV contain these keywords that employers are basically looking for? And if you're not containing this information, then there's a very high chance that your CV is not getting picked up by application tracking systems, or if it is making it to the desk of recruitment agencies, they are basically not picking you up because they can't find what is it that you are capable of and what technologies have you basically dealt with. So if they can't find that information in a more clear manner, then there's a very high chance that your CV is not going to be considered when they're looking for candidates. So we're trying to get ourselves into a position where we can be selected, or our CVs can basically be picked up by recruitment agencies. That is the objective that we're trying to get to. We also looked at what keywords should you use, and my advice is, look at the positions that you're applying for, look at what keywords they're looking for, and make sure that you align your CV to those particular keywords. We looked at the common mistakes, that CCNA is not the same as Cisco Certified Network Associate. So be familiar with the acronyms that are used in your industry, and make sure that you align your CV to contain the the more preferred of the two, either the acronym or the full interpretation of that acronym, right? So CCNA more preferred than Cisco Certified Network Associate. ITIL ITIL is probably not, is going to be more known than the definition of what ITIL stands for. EIGRP is going to be more recognizable with the acronym rather than the full definition. So be mindful of which of the two is more recognized, the acronym or the full description of the acronym. And we also looked at the skills. Make sure that your skills section of your CV explains what it is that you're capable of and what technology you basically have dealt with. And this is the part that there's a bit of controversy in this one because there's strong opinions. My recommendation is try and put your qualifications in one or max two lines. Try and put your qualifications in one or max two lines. And this is just basically my general recommendation. I do not have any human resource knowledge to substantiate it, but I've seen that in the past, you your CV tends to work best if you got one or two lines of your qualifications, and I always encourage people to put them at the top. If you can basically be able to emulate the format that I've basically put on the presentation, where if you are fortunate enough to do a degree, then put your degree at the top with the university or the college that you basically went to do your degree. And then below that, include all your certifications in one line, right? So in this case, CCNP routing and switching, CCNP security, CCDP, CCNA wireless, MCSE, CompTIA A plus, Network plus. I am a strong believer that when you put this at the top of your CV, the person who's reading your CV can get to understand what qualifications you have and be able to formulate whether you're a suitable candidate for the job at the very start of looking at your CV. And if your qualifications match the job in question, then there's a very high possibility that you are basically going to be nominated. Right. I strongly believe that recruiters use these first few lines for identifying people that are suitable for the particular position in question. I don't know how many times I've looked at CVs where the individual's qualifications are on page number 4, and you have to go through reading the CV for about 6 minutes or so before you can be able to find that, oh, they got a degree and they've got CCNA and they've got CCNP. And I always encourage people, make sure that your qualifications are the first part of the first 3, 4 lines of your CV. Like I said, this is not backed by any evidence from any interactions with recruitment agencies. This is basically the people that I've worked with. The moment they put their qualifications at the top, it basically changes their chances of being invited for an interview for someone who was not getting any possible responses to getting to a point where someone gets invited for a particular interview. So this is one of the key sections. This is one of the key sections. And as we basically close off our live for this session, what should you include in your CV? What should you include in your CV? Remember, there is no right or wrong. There is no best CV, but there is minimum standard, right? And there is format and content that make your CV more recognizable, that make your CV give you a chance and an opportunity to make it through the doors and be called for an interview. And these are the five. Number one, you got your contact information. That goes without any saying. Your CV must contain, and you must include a summary. And this is basically your introduction that basically defines and showcases what skills you have. Then you got work experience, and this is your history. And most preferably, it must be in reverse chronological order. What that basically means is put your latest job at the top and put your oldest at the bottom. People are more interested in what you have been doing in the last two, three jobs. The what you don't want to do is to put your first job working at McDonald's at the top, and then on page number three, I then get to find out that you're working as a network administrator in your previous job. Some people don't have the time to get to page number three to try and figure out, what it is that you've done. So take that McDonald's job, put it at page number three. Take the network administrator job, put it on page number one. So make sure that you put your information in reverse chronological order, and try and create a short list of your top competencies. And these are your skills, both soft and hard skills. And the last one is make sure that your CV contains the relevant keywords for the job that you are basically applying for. So I don't know if anyone has got any questions. Please don't hesitate. Just let me know if anyone has got any questions in regards to resumes and what they should basically contain. I have had the opportunity to sit on both sides, um, on the applicant side, and also sitting on the side where I have had a chance to interview people who are applying for network positions. And I cannot stress how important the content, I cannot stress how important the content of the CV is. In the moments when I had the opportunity to interview, by reading someone's CV in about a minute or two, I that would basically be enough for me to be able to gauge whether the person is capable to deliver on the job in question or not. In about a minute or two of just reading someone's CV, yes, some of the things you basically then verify when you have a face-to-face interview with someone, but in your mind, you tend to have an estimated guess on what someone is capable of based on the CV and whether they are worth inviting for an interview or not. So I important in being able to determine it called for an interview is look at the things that we have covered. What makes a good CV? Look at your own resume and try and see how where you stand in comparison to what might be the standard, so that you can basically be able to improve in your area, in areas that you might be weak. My desire is you get to a point where recruitment agencies are contacting you for jobs on the market because they have seen your CV either on job platforms, or they've seen your summary and your knowledge on platforms such as LinkedIn, and they feel that you're a good enough candidate for the jobs that they're basically looking for in the market. And when you get yourself in such a position, it means that you are being chased after by recruitment agencies compared to you chasing after and trying to get a job on the market. And it is a good place to be where people come after you because you have drafted or crafted a very good resume that contains a format that is well understood and that makes it easier for your CV to be picked up by application tracking systems. So that's the whole focus of this session. Have a look at what we've covered and try and benchmark your resume to basically try and see where it basically stands. And if you have enjoyed this session and you think that there was something of value that you might have gained, please just hit the like button. Let me know that you enjoyed the content. And if you've got any questions, just put your question in the comments, or you can send me an email on tinei at the network hustle. It will probably be in the YouTube description. Send me an email, and if there's any videos that you would want me to make that can help answer different questions, do not hesitate. Let me know. I'm just going to check the chat one more time if there was anyone or if there's anyone who has a question that might need to be answered. So I'm just going to check the chat. Okay, so there's no one, no questions. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found something of value, and I will be doing more videos of this format to be able to try and share my knowledge and experience that I've encountered in the industry on both ends, and hope that it will help someone else who is starting or working and progressing towards their journey in the network industry. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.